And it said eyes closed. Often when you see Ballora in the game, she appears to have her eyes closed, while other animatronics often have their eyes open because, you know, it's their eyes. There's definitely something unsettling about that fact that her eyes are basically always closed. It's like she's maybe lulling us into a false sense of security, or maybe it's just that she doesn't use their eyes because, again, they're an animatronic, so why would they actually need working eyes? You don't think that she's always watching you because her eyes are closed, but she also seems to always be watching you. Do you know how creepy that is? Like, how is she able to locate you when her eyes are closed at literally all times? It's like Betty from Riverdale. Like, I've recently been catching up because I'm bored with nothing to do at home or nothing to watch. Now they have superpowers? Like, what the hell? Like, why are you trying to make this a superhero show when the CW has canceled literally all of them with the exception of The Flash? Don't do this. It got bad. But it was kind of alright. But like, don't. And at 9, Ballora. Due to her eyes being closed, some have theorized a connection between her and the mythological demon or creature known as Ballora. The fact that her eyes seem to be permanently closed and even unable to open is a fact that people tend to focus on, and this, as well as the similarity to her name Ballora, is where this theory comes from, though it is more likely a reference that she's just a ballerina. In Irish mythology, a Ballora is a giant cyclops who only opens a single eye to destroy his enemies, cause, you know, he's a cyclops. Otherwise, it's known for having its eyes shut. In Dungeons & Dragons, a Ballora is a demonic creature, often pictured with horns and wings, and people might have been pulling the name Ballora from Finn Balor's demon persona, if there are any WWE fans. I don't know, does Scott like WWE? And at 8, motivation. In the System Location game, where Ballora first makes her appearance, you are forced to shock Ballora into dancing at the beginning of the game. The frightening thing about this is the fact that you already know from the previous games that animatronics are often out to kill you. So, being forced to shock Ballora into performing just seems like a bad idea right off the get-go. It makes you feel like you're definitely going to end up dying, and you know what you do. So, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have shocked Ballora. I mean, then again, maybe also shocking her kind of saves you, because then, like, she's in, like, her dark area, and maybe the fact that she has her eyes closed is because her eyes are so sensitive to light. So, that's why she can see in the dark when her area is closed. But you shocking her, maybe it screwed up those circuits. You know, I'm just spitballing here, but what if it made it so that her eyes don't work properly, hence why they're always closed, and then that's why she has to rely on hearing to try to find you. Look at that. Coming up with theories around the spot.
Number 7. Mrs. Afton's soul. So one of the prominent theories when it comes to Ballora is that she is the wife of Mrs. Afton, in spirit form at least. Some believe that Mrs. Afton died. A lot of people actually believe that this happened as the result of a car crash due to a popular FNAF music video that circulated and somehow became considered canon by fans, despite the fact that this has yet to be confirmed in-game or in any of the books. Regardless, many fans have theorized that following her death, Mrs. Afton's soul lingered on this earthly plane within Ballora, and that Ballora is, in essence, possessed by Mrs. Afton. The song Ballora sings in Sister Location has often been used as evidence to support these claims, although there are a few different explanations for those lyrics.
And at 6, more aware. Some animatronics in these games seem to speak to you through pre-recorded lines, kind of like the Iron Man characters at Disney World. You know, they just tap their fingers and it says a line pre-recorded by Robert Downey Jr. In fact, a good number of them actually do this. Circus Baby, however, is not one of them because she's possessed by William Afton's daughter Elizabeth, and seems to be more in control of her thoughts, words, and actions, considering how, again, she's possessed. However, Ballora, while not being possessed, also displays some additional awareness compared to the others. She talks to you when you are in the vents underneath her gallery, and her words and phrases seem to be outside any kind of seemingly pre-recorded lines that would actually make sense for an animatronic of this caliber. This either means that Ballora could be possessed, but she's not, so it simply means that she has more advanced programming due to probably being an intentional substitute mother, because, you know, moms can't say the same thing 25 times in a row. I mean, they do, but you can't program them to.
Number 5. dancing. Last time we talked about how talented of a singer Ballora was, but of course being modeled after a ballerina, she is also known for being a talented dancer. She often glides and spins around her stage. She is meant to encourage children to get active and to enjoy pizza, implying that you could join Ballora for a dance-themed or ballerina-themed birthday party. Though I'm not sure how, if you rented her out, she would manage to dance, as she does apparently have very specific requirements when it comes to performing.
And at 4, her different jump scares. All of Ballora's jump scares are different, but they're also all terrifying. There are some jump scares where her face and eyes remain closed, while others her face opens up and reveals those sharp teeth and her eyes are still closed. But she also has jump scares where both the inside of her face and her eyes are open. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't like that. The only thing that isn't scary about this is the fact that she has purple eyes, which honestly just links her again to Afton. It doesn't mean that she's possessed. I'm just saying that it links her to Afton because of the color purple. Anything purple we need to immediately be suspicious of, and I think we've learned that at this point. Anything purple, even slightly, is going to get called out in the comments. Even my shirt. No matter how many times I say it was an accident, no one ever believes me.
Number 3. An empty room, an empty tomb. What if Ballora was intended to be an animatronic to hold Mrs. Afton's soul, but instead was unable to fill that role before Mrs. Afton left or died prematurely? We still don't really know why William Afton creates animatronics and seemingly is obsessed with the mad science of bonding souls to them. Most believe that this obsession comes from a place of William wanting to discover the secrets of immortality. If he loved his wife, if he even had a wife to begin with, or a true love, is it possible that Ballora was made for her? This comes from the theory that Circus Baby may have been made for Elizabeth in a similar way, but where he succeeded with Elizabeth, perhaps he failed with Ballora, so she is an empty vessel. Perhaps the lyrics in her song refer to her own self. An empty room, no more joy, an empty tomb. What if Ballora is the empty room? What if the tomb is empty because the body ended up elsewhere due to some kind of failed bonding process?
But ultimately, in number 2, crawling. Scott has confirmed that Ballora actually only has 2 ways that she moves. She's either gliding around on tracks, dancing gracefully, or when she's not on tracks, since she can't really do anything else, she's forced to crawl on all 4s to actually move around. That's some creepy man. That's like a demonic lady spider from hell. That's like you downloaded too many Skyrim mods and then you got out of control. Talk about things that are gonna keep you up at night. Now, I'm just gonna be terrified of spiders with boobs. I mean, I'm gonna be terrified about waking up and seeing Ballora looking down on me from the ceiling. And then have her face open up. And finally, in at number 1, security breach. In security breach, we can eventually find a table surrounded by non-functioning staff bots. However, these staff bots, you can actually notice, are also seemingly painted. And it actually contains 1 bot for each of the Afton family members. Mr. Afton, or William Afton, being the one in the top hat sitting next to what is clearly meant to be the mother, one designed like baby meant to indicate Elizabeth since she ended up, possessing an animatronic. Michael sitting across from Crying Child, who looks very similar to the Papa Bot, mostly because there's nothing else added to it. And the Crying Child robot who is sitting across from Michael, who fittingly is missing his head. However, a lot of people have pointed out the similarities between the Mom Bot and the Ballora animatronic, using it as evidence that the Ballora animatronic is in fact possessed by Mrs. Afton, or as these people are saying, Clara Afton, which is a whole other can of worms that I've talked about many other times. And while the 2 animatronics do look similar, and this is definitely something to take note of, I think that it merely serves as evidence that Afton built these animatronics in the image of his family, or at the very least he built the Ballora animatronic as a means of resurrecting his wife instead of actually having her possess the robot. When he made this robot, she would have already been dead, hence the design similarities and hence why he was inspired. He wouldn't really have made a robotic version of his wife if she wasn't dead, because I mean, like, they have 3 kids, so obviously things are going well there. And he only learns about possession after Elizabeth gets got by a baby, meaning that this is just to show that we were right about Ballora being a surrogate mother, or intended to be a surrogate mother, but not that she was actually possessed.
Number 10. Technical difficulties. Proving just how terrifying she can be in Ultimate Custom Night and during the sister location location custom night, Ballora, when she appears, will mess with your cameras. She approaches from either one of two halls, but when she does, the cameras become disabled. Apparently Ballora is some kind of tech whiz or emits some kind of frequency or other technological waves of some kind, 5G, that interferes with your cameras. The only time you'll see her in custom night is when it's too late and she has already jump scared you. Number 9. Listen carefully. The key to avoiding Ballora's jump scare in Ultimate Custom Night is in attentive listening. What you'll hear in your headphones, this is FNAF after all, sound cues galore, so I'm assuming you will be wearing headphones, is Ballora's music, but you won't be able to see her. You'll want to close the door on the side you hear her music coming from before she can attack. If you succeed, the only way you'll know is with another sound cue, a thud meant to signify her leaving. And you'll obviously know if you fail, cause well, you'll be dead. Number 8. Shocking revelations. In Sister Location, you are of course forced into shocking Ballora in order to get her to perform and make sure she is in operating order so she can once again entertain children during the next day. If you've seen my part 1 of this list or played Sister Location, you'll know what I'm talking about. Something, however, that we have yet to mention is what happens on night 2 when you shock Ballora. Only Ballora's shadowy silhouette can be seen when you illuminate her stage, and you are forced to shock her in order to motivate her into performing. However, when you do so, all you will hear is a garbled, creepy, demonic voice which is emanating from the malfunctioning hand unit. Initially, it doesn't sound like anything is being said intentionally, just a bunch of creepy sounds. However, one Redditor plugged the audio into the audio recording program Audacity to see if they could make sense of it, and discern if the voice was actually saying anything resembling words. Upon increasing the pitch and speed, they did uncover some actual words being said there. To them, they said it sounded like argumentative, standards, elevation, passive, heights. However, what these words actually mean in regards to the bigger picture, or if Scott intended them to be there or be found at all, remains a mystery.
And at 7, singing. Ballora is said to be talented at dancing and singing. Her goal is to get children active and apparently dancing while they balance out all the pizza that they eat. I mean, it's kind of like a dumbed down Mazercise. You get to experience her singing firsthand in Sister Location though, where you hear her sing in a really creepy voice. Like, goddamn, this thing will send shivers down your spine. She appears to mainly focus on one melody, and one of the lines that you can hear her sing in the game goes as follows. I roam these halls alone all day, but now you're here, friend and prey. Yikes. He also sings about hearing your flesh and bones. So yeah, but you know what? I think that a lot of people sing about that, or at least the people I've hung around sing about that a lot. I don't really sing about it, I more like describe it, but I mean, I've dated people who sung about it. I think that's what they were singing about anyway. It got disturbing, so I kind of tuned it out.
Number 6. Ballora's stage. One of the creepiest parts of the introduction to the location and game mechanics in Sister Location is when you're examining the stages. The first stage you are forced to illuminate is Ballora's. The fact that her light and the other stage's lights aren't just always on makes the whole thing even more unsettling. That anxiety that you feel building the first time you go to turn on that light, and then the crazy thing is how muddy the lighting or thickness of the windows seems, making the stage still appear as though it were being viewed through a vignette. Even when Ballora and her mini-Renas appear after their administered shock, the whole scene still appears disturbing. Number 5. Replacement Mrs. Afton. Another theory suggests that Ballora was simply made to fill in for Mrs. Afton, filling the void in William Afton's life after his wife left him. This also seems to be supported by the lyrics to Ballora's song, which seem to be quite sad and lonely in nature overall. Ballora mostly talks about being alone, implying that someone refuses to acknowledge her presence, which makes her lonely. However, the final lyrics in the song suggest that Ballora finds joy in her performance. She sings, "It's so good to sing all day, to dance, to spin, to fly away." This could even imply, if Ballora was meant to be a stand-in for Mrs. Afton, programmed to be similar to her, that Mrs. Afton found joy elsewhere in her life. And so, with William making her sad, she chose to, as the lyrics say, fly away. Perhaps Mrs. Afton left William, which is why he created Ballora. He was sad about her leaving, and so Ballora is meant to be some kind of creepy replacement? Number 4. Travel by tracks. One of these specific requirements, of course, is that she needs to have tracks to dance on. Ballora actually glides around on tracks in her studio, which is how she manages to spin and perform. Without her tracks, Ballora can't even stand, and instead crawls around disturbingly on all fours. I'm not sure how exactly she would perform without said tracks, or if it's even possible. Though fortunately, or unfortunately, her super creepy mini arenas don't seem to need tracks in order to move and prance around like Ballora does. Yay?
Getting close to the end in number 3, Ennard. In Sister Location, Ballora ends up getting scooped out by Baby, at least I'm pretty sure it was by Baby, and then her parts end up being used to help create Ennard. Her endoskeleton is used to form his upper body, and her eyes are used to help him disguise himself more successfully as a human, even though they only really serve as design until he shoves himself into Ennard. I mean, like, you can see all the eyes all over his body, and then when he spits them out like Ennard spaghetti, you can see just eyes flying out of him. So, I don't know why that part is listed on the wiki, but hey, who am I to argue with the wiki? You know, I'm me. I'm gonna argue with every robot I can.
Number 2. Mrs. Afton? While some theorize that Ballora is like the big sister to Circus Baby, others believe that the two have an even closer relationship. They believe that Ballora is actually Circus Baby's mom, or rather that the spirit within Ballora, which gives her consciousness and awareness, belongs to William Afton's wife and Elizabeth Afton's mother, Mrs. Afton, sometimes referred to as Clara Afton, given the name by fans after the character Clara, from the soap opera scenes of The Immortal and the Restless, featured in Sister Location. People believe that Clara's story from The Immortal and the Restless is indeed a somewhat reference to the story of Mrs. Afton and her husband William. This has yet to be confirmed, but some believe she died in a car accident following the death and loss of the rest of her family, and somehow her soul maybe became trapped within Ballora. How that happened, we have no idea, but you know, could be possible. Number 1. Model of? Another theory, which I think makes more sense given what limited information we have on the Afton family dynamic, is that Ballora was created after Mrs. Afton's death and was simply modeled after her. Perhaps she herself was a ballerina. Some people believe that Ballora was created to be a vessel for Mrs. Afton's soul as she was dying, but because she died before the animatronic was made, she was unable to possess it. In that case, it would be perhaps some other form of remnant that possesses or haunts the animatronic ballerina we know as Ballora, granting her life. Number 10. Late Edition. Ballora is thought of by some to be a late addition to the game's Sister Location, a character who was never really intended to appear and was possibly rushed at the last second in order to be finished in time for the game's release. This is scary in the sense that if this theory is true, we almost got a game without any Ballora, which would be awful considering how important some consider her to be relative to lore and how popular she is among fans for multiple reasons. Why do people think that Ballora was a late addition to the game? Well, because she has no making of available in the extras. This is odd and stands out to people as, other than Ennard, Ballora is really the only other main animatronic to not have one included. Number 9. Good animatronic. This one admittedly is not that scary, but the antithesis to it is. What if Ballora was never intending to hurt you in the games and you were simply made to think that way? Sure, she can still jump scare you, but it could be because she has been herself manipulated by Circus Baby into thinking that you are a threat. After all, Ballora doesn't really seem to be malicious in nature. She genuinely likes to sing and dance and may not even have a vengeful spirit possessing her. Is it possible that she inherently would not think to do harm to you? Is it possible that she too is being manipulated by Circus Baby into thinking that you are the enemy, just as you think she is a threat? And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are a big fan of Ballora, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. The Last Animatronic. Some believe that because Ballora doesn't have a making of feature in the extras menu of Sister Location, that this gives up some information as to not just when she was made and added into the game, but when she was made in canon. Some have taken this as a hint that Ballora was one of the latest inventions of William Afton, in comparison, at least, to the other FNAF Funtime / Sister Location animatronics. animatronics. Some believe that Ballora was the last animatronic in this grouping to have been made, which if you believe that she has any connection to Mrs. Afton might actually make some sense, assuming that you feel that Mrs. Afton disappeared following the death of Elizabeth for one reason or another. Number 7. Relation to Circus Baby. A theory that some have is that Circus Baby is the younger sister to Ballora, implying that the two were made in relation to each other somehow, perhaps both being created and handmade by William Afton himself. The other theory is that Elizabeth herself had an older sister, who we haven't met yet but who also died, and whose soul was trapped or stored within Ballora somehow, preserving the other young girl. She possibly even died after Elizabeth did and was perhaps placed there initially to keep her sister's soul company. Number 6. Not big on pretend. Circus Baby at one point in the game remarks how Ballora never learned how to pretend. Some believe this is an indicator towards Ballora's personality, and have even implied that Ballora does not like to play pretend because she is too mature and more grown up than Circus Baby in terms of her personality. Others have theorized that Ballora is simply not a fan of playing pretend, and for this reason did not like Circus Baby's plan, sensing early on that it might be flawed. It also makes sense that Circus Baby would be inclined to pretend though, considering that she seems to have kinda two sides to her, and also the fact that it's heavily implied that she can shapeshift to a certain degree, disguising her appearance. Depending of course on which continuity we're looking at, as to how much she can shapeshift.
How about doing a number 5, sharp teeth? Despite not being a nightmare animatronic and not being animal themed, Ballora oddly enough still has razor sharp teeth in her mouth for one reason or another, which mostly appears to be in the game to frighten you, because I mean I don't really think there'd be a practical use for them unless it's just for absolutely slaughtering children, kind of like Anakin. But I mean she has a few more human or like dull looking teeth in the front, but behind them, oh man, it's like a shark back there. It's crazy. I don't know why. Why was this a thing? Like Scott, dude, come on.
Number 4. Loss. As I said, the meaning behind the lyrics to Ballora's song have been a topic of heated debate amongst fans, and the idea that these lyrics refer to Mrs. Afton speaking out with her own voice from within Ballora, or simply repeating Mrs. Afton's own thoughts as a sort of animatronic version of her, are not the only theories to explain them. Some have also speculated that the lyrics could refer to the loss of a child, and whether or not Ballora is Mrs. Afton could be a reference to Mrs. Afton's and perhaps even Mr. Afton's grief. All I see is an empty room, no more joy, an empty tomb could specifically be a lyric referring to the death of either Elizabeth or that of crying child, or perhaps both. Number 3. Room for one more. Speaking of mini-arenas, okay, so this isn't directly related to Ballora, but I'm not sure if the mini-arenas will get their own list, and they are affiliated with her, so I figured it would make sense to include this story here. Do you want the mini-arenas to get their own list? Or do you feel as though they deserve their own list? Let us know your thoughts on that in the comments below. I don't know if we actually have enough facts for them for a top 10, but the mini-arenas are definitely terrifying, so I feel like they're worthy of having their own list. This story features Ballora's naughty mini-arenas appearing in the 3rd Fazbear Frights book that was released earlier this year, titled 1:35 AM. In the story Room for One More, a security guard named Stanley spots them while working on his desk. Later he notices that he feels sick, and realizes the mini-arenas must have been climbing inside his body while he was asleep on the job. As he attempts to head to the hospital, his body fails him and he falls to the floor. A final mini-arena approaches him, asking if there's room for one more. Terrified, he screams as the mini-arena climbs into his mouth. Yikes. Number 2. Mrs. Afton's agony. On the other hand, maybe Ballora isn't so empty. After all, my previous point was just based on one of many different interpretations of Ballora's song lyrics. Something else you may have noticed about Ballora is just how aware of her surroundings she seems. True, she can't see because her eyes are closed, but she can hear and seemingly feel things. Maybe not physical things. I'm not saying that she has the sense of touch, but she can feel emotions. Circus Baby refers to her as being afraid in the game, and also comments, as I said before, that Ballora never learned how to pretend. Probably either because she didn't want to, or because she found it too difficult. Either way, pretty much everything here makes her sound fairly human. In the Fazbear Frights books, we learn that agony is powerful. So powerful in fact that you don't even need a soul to give animatronic sentience if you have enough of it. Enough agony. Perhaps it was Mrs. Afton's grief and agony over the loss of her marriage or her children that then possessed Ballora. If that is true, Ballora could exist and have sentience while Mrs. Afton could still be alive and out there still somewhere. Number 1. Purple Gal. Perhaps Ballora isn't Mrs. Afton, but even if she isn't, she could still be a companion for William. After all, something that many people have noticed is, well, how purple she is. She has purple eyes, purple hair, and a complete purple design, head to toe purple. Do you know who else is known for the color purple in the franchise? Like a lot of purple? Yep, William Afton himself, Purple Guy as we sometimes call him. So what if Ballora wasn't actually Mrs. Afton in the sense of representing his wife or being his wife incarnate, but instead was simply a creation of William's to act as his own companion? Colors are generally used in cinema and in storytelling to help connect concepts, characters, and denote themes. In this case, the connection could simply mean that these two are connected as creator and animatronic, or companions in some other way. We all know how much colors tend to be pointed out and utilized in both the FNAF books and in the games, and if any of William's children are actually animatronics in disguise, like we've been theorizing on the channel, it's possible that Ballora is still in a way their mother. She was just never human to begin with.